Ready, Mike? You ready to knock this out?
Bro, I love when you say let's knock it out.
Yo, 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 yo! It's a lifestyle podcast episode. I'm losing count. I think we're on 361. We got Miggity Mike the Mayor gallivanted back into town. Mike, I gotta ask, dude. You know, I don't want to give you too much of a hard time, but man, it's not easy living the Mike Murray life, is it?
Bro, we had a amazing, very short weekend because we flew out, what was it, Friday morning. We arrived in Atlantic City early Friday afternoon, and we flew back out, Sunday at 11:30. So it was we had a great weekend, but man, was it a fast weekend.
Hold on, we got to set this up. Break down, because I remember at Mini Nats, which is one of our favorite shows, of course, every April. I remember talking
What
to
do you mean
you.
one of our favorite shows? That is one of definitely our favorite shows.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some more in just a minute, but I remember in April when you were talking about what a crazy May was going to dovetail into June. To break down really quick, high level bullet point, the last few weeks, because you've had like 3 out of 4 weeks. You're going to be gallivanting to another country in a couple weeks. I mean, dude, bro, you need like a secretary, dude.
All right, so check this out. So we just got back from Atlantic City.
Baller.
The weekend before that, we went on a cruise to the Bahamas. The weekend before that, we were in Canada, New York, Buffalo, New York. So it's been a pretty crazy, wild last 3 weeks.
Dude, I'm not from Buffalo, but I'm running after the Bills, like Chameleon Hair said. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, bro, OJ, baby. OJ's running wild, bro.
When you told me the one weekend you were in New York, and then the next weekend, dude, I wasn't even trying to give you a hard time. I thought you sailed, because you go, no, we just got back on a cruise. And I go, wow, I told my wife, Mike went on a cruise from New York to Miami. And then later, Mike's like, no, Tommy, you big dummy.
You big dummy. We flew to New York, went into Canada, hung out in Canada for the day, came back to Buffalo, hung out 2 more days in Buffalo, then flew back to Florida. Following weekend, drove down to Miami, got on the cruise ship. That was on Friday, and we were on the cruise till Monday morning. Came back, worked, and then we came back to work, and then the following Friday, flew out to Atlantic City, and then Sunday afternoon we hung out, went to Atlantic City truck meet, which was fucking humongous. I mean, it was fucking huge, bro. We didn't even bother walking around seeing everything. I mean, the hundreds of freaking vendors that they had there was enough.
Yeah, we'll talk, and we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's been a crazy. Now, in 2 weeks, me and Shannon fly out to Jamaica, and we're doing our Aftermath club getaway in Jamaica.
It's a whole nother level. We want to stop and pause for just a moment. You always hear it at the top, but we've got to thank our title sponsor, Scrapin, The Coast. That's SCRAPIN, thecoast.com for more information. It's June 21st through the 23rd. Typically now it's going to always fall on that third weekend of the month of June in Biloxi, of course. This is a mini truck inductee for the Mini Truck Hall of Fame, and such an amazing event. There's so much to talk about, but I think the big thing is, Mike, as I get a little bit older, I keep scratching my head asking, why does anyone have a car or truck show in the summer? And of course, Greg, rest in peace, and the team there has answered that over the years. They said, you know what? We got this big building here in Biloxi, the Coliseum, and with the air conditioning, it makes it a game changer. You know, not every show has indoor space and not every show has air conditioning, but I can tell you this. It's an awesome show, indoor and outdoor. But, Mike, the number one reason I love going there is for some of that, AC.
That Freon poisoning. I was talking to our boy Chad Luke the other day, and he goes, I can't wait to see you in that Freon poisoning.
Yeah.
Scraping the coast.
Yeah.
So, yes. Look forward to always hanging out with our boy Chad Luke, man. He'll be up there. And
Luke. So now here's something, though. We want to dovetail this real quick. The June 21st, 22nd, 23rd, what I also want to reinforce to you is literally 3 months later, we're going to be back in Biloxi. So we got to give it up for the freaking, with an IN, weekend and that is September 20th through the 22nd in Biloxi. It's at Harrah's Gulf Coast. It's the freaking with an IN weekend.com website. You can buy tickets. There's going to be an after party. There's a lot going on. Mike and those guys went last year. I know Scotty the Body as well as Jen Elise. They were there. So many of you were. So I can't wait. Hopefully Roxy and Robert, the Simmons, and all of the good kinfolk that we know. Which, by the way, shout out to Robert. I know he's got a new venture that he's doing. We're going to talk to him soon.
Yep.
But big ups. Mike, I did want to let everyone know that. So 2 quick things before we get into the episode overview. This weekend, Mike, are you doing anything on Sunday morning? Do you think you can meet me over up in maybe Ruskin or Gibtown to pull an engine on Sunday morning about, I don't know, 8 a.m.?
You know, it's so funny you ask, because you know what? I will be busy. And you know, it's happens to, you know, the last time you asked me to come help you happened to be on Mother's Day.
There's no way.
Yes, you asked me the same question, man.
Dude, I mean,
you're pulling a lot of motors, bro. Are you taking over Hector's job, or what's going on?
This weekend, as Mike mentioned, is Happy Father's Day, and just want to reinforce that to everyone, all the great dads out there. And if you're someone that, you know, your dad's no longer around, celebrate his life in a way that is fitting for you guys. Or if you're a dad, spend the time with your son. We love seeing the photos.
Don't forget daughters, because my daughter's coming home this weekend to spend it with
your son or daughter. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I can't forget the little ones. Also, rest in peace, Eric Coleman. He passed away on June 14th. And that, of course, is going to be this week, the anniversary, of course, of the Color Shop. Mike, as we get into the episode overview, I want to reinforce I'm super excited about this episode. I sat down with Joe Hughes recently, Mike, and Joe owns, you'll know this truck, the Low Lux truck that was in the airlift booth just a year ago. It seems like yesterday, but a year ago at Mini Nats 2023, remember, it was over there.
The black one?
A stone's throw from us.
Yep.
And I got a chance to slap hands. You got a chance to meet Joe at Lone Star Throwdown. He's a good dude. His wife is awesome. They're good people. So we're going to get a chance to sit down with him, and we're going to tell this kind of elaborate story of this truck from West Coast to East Coast. Rest in peace to Beaver. There's a big story behind it. Mike, the episode overview is brought to you by our family, our kinfolk from Hammered Weekend Wear. That's HAMMERD, weekendwear.com. Mike, you got a Hammered Weekend Wear to your left behind you.
Yes, I do. That would happen. That right there is the banana hammock, the postal, you know, whatever you guys want to call it, which, you know, it is in the shop right now. It's getting a secret modification that I can't tell.
Dude.
But hopefully it'll be done by freaking weekend.
Dude, that's going to be sick, bro. Love the little sneak peek there. But shout out to Hammered Weekend Wear. They got some cool billet stuff on their website and so many other cool things. They've got sticker packs I saw that are on sale, Hammered Weekend Wear. Mike, we got the breaking news, so I wanted to mention this. Last week I did a special one-off type episode to talk about the Goonies, man. I had the poster back here.
Yes.
Mike, of course, famously dug one out of the trash, and I appreciate that, Mike, because any of my friends that are willing to go dumpster diving for me, Scrooge McDuck style, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That near and dear to my heart, so thanks, Mike. And
bro, I almost didn't make it out of there alive, bro.
Dude, if you want to see some good dumpster diving, watch the Seinfeld movie from Netflix, or from Netflix. Is it Amazon? Netflix. Netflix.
What's it
called? The one about the breakfast stuff. It's a new one. You gotta watch it.
Yes, that's on Netflix.
It's kind of a weird one, but it is kind of funny. But the breaking news I mentioned recently, Eminem hit us with a new single. It's crushing it. 51 years old. I think it's #1 track in the world, which is just insane. And it's really cool because Steve Miller Band, Abracadabra, is of course the main sample in it. And Steve Miller Band on Instagram did a huge post talking about, you know, Eminem's love for music and how he was happy to sample it. And I think that's such a cool thing. So more to come on that in the future. The album's coming reportedly now, the first week in July. But Mike, today was Apple's annual Worldwide Developer Conference, also known as WWDC. That was on Monday, June 10th. And I can tell you this, it was really cool. Like, I watch all of these. This one was over the top. They did just some unbelievable video work like they always do. It kind of showed them parachuting into the big Apple spaceship. But Mike, I can tell you this: iOS 18, they're going to add a lot of cool things, and some things like, listen, we got our Android listeners. They're going to go, ha ha ha. We've been able to do this kind of stuff for years, but a lot more customization of the home screen, kind of changing the colors, tinting them, if you will, of all of your apps. Kind of doing, if you're like me and you have your phone go into dark mode, you'll be able to kind of put all the apps will look into dark mode as well. So there's a lot of neat things that are coming. I do think that over the course of time, our expectations, Mike, your phone's your iPhone, and you're kind of, I'd say, a casual iPhone user. You probably don't really get into the whole nitty gritty after the updates. I get a little giddy myself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I don't.
You're
No.
not looking for the new like icon.
Hey, just as long as I can watch Pornhub, that's all I care about.
Dude, that was a big feature. They said they're blocking any adult. See, the Smut Bandit. I mean, Mike, but not that the Smut Bandit.
No.
There was, I swear I saw an ad that said something about New Jersey this past weekend, but maybe I was wrong. I could be wrong, but it's just so odd. I know this is double negative, but I've never not seen and the Smut Bandit in the same place. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I think you get where I'm going.
No, I know exactly where you're going with it, but I can assure you that there was no Smut Bandit stuff going on in New Jersey this weekend. By me, anyway.
Breaking news is brought to you by our kinfolk at Lone Star Throwdown. Typically, the pre-registration opens every year on August 1st around, I believe, noon Central Time, which will be 1 Eastern. So we'll be able to reinforce that. Of course, every year it's selling out quicker and quicker. The event is every February in Conroe, Texas. But, Mike, let's not forget, in just a couple of weeks, the team, the Lone Star Throwdown family, had expanded. And, of course, they have an event coming up, Classic Truck Throwdown. This event is the 29th and 30th of June at the same place. So for anyone that has a vehicle 25 years or older, so you're thinking trucks, we're basically to the new body style now, in 99, if you can believe that. But it has to be a 99 or older, my understanding. You can register on their website, and we're T-minus a couple weeks. So if you've never been to LST, but you have an opportunity to go to this event, which is the weekend before July 4th, this might be a good dry run for some people. Of course, Mike, when I say dry, hot run, but just find yourself some shade out there.
Hey, you could always go underneath that big, the big rodeo stadium there and go hang out in there, because that's probably about the only shade you're going to get in that place.
Yeehaw! It's Texas. It's Texas in July.
Hey, what do they say? Bigger, better, hotter in Texas?
Crazy in Texas. Now, listen, if you happen to be consuming this content via any podcast audio app, thank you. Don't forget, you can jump over to YouTube and you can watch us. You can see Mike's beautiful room here. It's decorated with his Hammered Weekend Wear gear, and you can see my mess back here. I've got a couple Easter eggs. I moved one in place, and I might have an MIC thing back there somewhere, thanks to my friend Matt Torgerson. Mike, the general update. So you hinted at this a minute ago, but I did want to ask you this. Atlantic. Sorry, Mark. Atlantic Truck Meet.
Atlantic
City Truck Meet. See, I'm making sure Mike's paying attention. He is. Yep. So I got my pen right here.
Thank you. Get that check mark.
Yep. I got the binder out there in the hot, But I saw a video where you, Talls and Smalls, did this little promo, and you were in front of this really cool, like, I thought you were at Clearwater Beach, man. Talk about some of the sights and sounds, the things that you saw there, because it does look like a pretty sick production.
No, it's definitely a sick production. I mean, he basically had every wheel manufacturer there. When I say you got your American Force, and when they come out and they set up these booths, man, you're looking at like 20 by 80 just monstrosities, and just
like you thought it was a Guns N' Roses concert, basically.
And that's pretty much what it looked like. But the sand castles that he had out there, he had two different ones, and each on one end. As you're coming in from the spectator gate, you ran into one of those, and basically what he does is he has the Atlantic City Truck Meet logo, and then with all his major sponsors logos are in the sandcastle. and he has two different ones. And a thing that I thought was pretty cool is at the end of the show, he picks somebody, and they get to run through with their 4-wheel drive, run through that sandcastle. So I thought that was pretty cool. But dude, they had the burnout pit out there, and I mean, they had the 3 different classes, and that the burnouts were going all day Friday. I'm sorry, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and it was wild. It was some really good burnouts out there, and they had all the diesel trucks were all lined up freaking all day long to get out there, and so they can see on the dyno and see the numbers. And I mean, rolling coal all damn day at the damn show. It definitely is a lifted truck show, but there were some lowered vehicles there.
Did you see the red? I think the red S10, the guy that owns that, the square body, he was out there.
Yes, his name is JR.
Yeah, JR bow tie something on Instagram, I want to say, but it's super sick. We saw it at LST.
Yep, exactly. And Paisley, his daughter's name is Paisley, and Paisley is that's her truck. Is that red truck? That's her truck, and she does all kinds of different designs, and she sells all kinds of different things, and she's all over Instagram, and the little girl's probably what 5, 6, 7 years old, something like that, and she's definitely a future trucker. I don't know which way she's going to go. But she says that's her red mini truck.
Her calling. Oh
yeah. And but her dad, I believe his name is JR, and I did meet him, and he is a mini trucker. He's an old school mini trucker, and I think he's actually good friends with Mark that puts on Atlantic City Truck Meet, and he is an old school mini trucker. But he's like, man, he goes, the money's with all these damn lifted trucks, so he does a lot of lifted truck stuff because of the money, and all these kids, they want to spend their money on lifted trucks, and he's going to build lifted trucks, and I can't blame him.
Yeah, so, and something I would reinforce to there. I think some people may hear that and go, "Oh, wow, someone just doing this and that." Mike and I talked the other day, and I don't think it's any different than you've heard over the course of time. I've heard stories of a painter going, I kind of got out of painting such and such type trucks, and now I'm overdoing motorcycles, and you naturally kind of go, well, why did that happen? Well, if you think about the clientele, right? I mean, a lot of mini truckers progressed on to hot rod shops. Mike Finnegan has moved into other things, right? So many, Josh Freeman, of course, with his success at different hot rod shops and Gas Monkey and things like that. So I think some people might hear that and go, oh yeah, it must be nice or whatever, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, who you associate with or who you go after. If you have a restaurant and you're doing like high-end premium type food, you're excluding certain clientele. And I think that's, to me, that's a smart thing for that region of the country, especially, Mike.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, they ended up selling out Saturday afternoon at like 1:00. And
for registration.
For registration, the place was packed. And I mean, my guess is there's got to have been freaking over 2,000 vehicles there, because that place was just wall to wall with trucks. And me and John and Kim and Shannon, we pretty much spent our time over there with the vendors and just talking with the vendors and just out there promoting Eastbound. And so it was a good time, man. The weather was absolutely beautiful. It was nice and cool. It was like a high of 80 degrees. And
don't rub it in, dude.
Oh, dude, it was beautiful. And we stayed at the Hard Rock, and the Hard Rock was right there, on the boardwalk, and so we had a good time. Everybody talked about what a shithole Atlantic City was, but hey, where we went, we had a great time and some really good food. Ate at Carmine's. I don't know if you've ever eaten at Carmine's or not.
Hey, forget about it, man. Forget about it. Let me ask you this while you're coughing there. Did John enjoy cruising the Escalade up there? Like, because, dude, if I would have known, dude, if I would have got the invite, I mean, I would have went and saw, like, maybe if I could have taken the Escalade to Bada Bing, up there. The Bings.
Yeah, John cruised the Escalade onto the trailer and back off the trailer, onto the show and out of the show and back on the trailer. No, he actually did drive it down to the Hard Rock and parked it down there at the Hard Rock, I think Friday night, and then brought it back first thing Saturday morning. and
Very cool.
it stayed there at the show because of course he had security and all that stuff. But it was definitely worth going up to. We had a great time, and Mark and his crew, man, they know how to party. That's for sure. Because they had a pool party at the Harrah's Saturday night, and that place was packed. I mean, it was thousands of people there at that pool party.
Mike, you don't have to remind us Mark knows how to party.
Bro, he definitely knows that. We all found that out at Eastbound Get Down.
Eastbound Get Down. Or
Yes.
as he called it, didn't he call it Eastbound Lay Down or something?
I think he called it. I'm about to fall down. I think is what he said, and so I think it was
Giving
Eastbound
Mark a
Fall
hard
Down.
time. He is a nice guy, and that's something that I think is important because, you know, some people, I'm going to say a good majority of car people, you know, you might look at different demographics and go, oh, that's dumb, or I don't like that. I mean, granted, there are some things that we all condemn, you know, destroying property and all that stuff, the stupid sideshows and all that crap. But when you look at like what these lifted guys are doing, again, it's not my cup of tea, but I look at it and say, hey, if I was in the automotive world and then I expanded and opened a 4x4 shop on the side of my business and then that brought in revenue, I mean, you think about all those trucks that are there. They're going out, they're supporting, buying wheels and tires. It could be from a place, could be your buddy's business. So, you know, I look at it and say, hey, it's contribute as long as people are doing things that aren't destructive. Certainly, it's contributing to the overall success of the automotive world.
Oh no, absolutely, and you know, and even with that being said, because you know, a lot of these problems, it seems to be a lot of these lifted kids, you know, lifted truck kids, because it seems like they're really young, are the ones that are going to these different towns and causing all these issues. And it didn't seem like there was any of those problems
Yeah,
there,
that's great.
you know,
Yeah,
for
that's a
that
good
weekend.
point.
And there was thousands of them there. But the one thing that I did notice is that Mark was he pushed a lot about, hey guys, this shit isn't allowed. And he made sure that they knew it, and he stayed on them. And
Well, good for him.
he policed it a lot. And
Excellent.
but at the end of the day, bro, we had a great time. They did a great job. And there was, I mean, tons of vehicles, tons of spectators. And I know all those vendors were definitely happy with that. That's for damn sure.
Good stuff. I enjoyed Goonies Day, which was June 7th, last Friday. Of course, I put out a special edition. I had done a couple of Goonies episodes in the past, Mike. I came home. There wasn't going to be an episode that week, and I came home on that Thursday, and I said, you know, I kind of had this episode I've been working on for a few months, and I put the pedal down, dude, and before I knew it, it was 1:30 in the morning, and I had finished it up, and I kept telling myself, why do I do this? But, you know, oftentimes whatever you do in life, whether it's a hobby or a career, you know, you kind of say, hey, I'm going to stop doing it when it's fun, when it's no longer fun. And, you know, for me, even though on a Goonies episode, I know some people might think this is crazy. It's like I'll sometimes post things or I'll do an episode, and it might not be a topic that most people, especially like in our community, they might go, oh, you know, I'm not into that movie or whatever. But to me, it's the thrill of kind of pulling together the information. And I've always said that, like, you know, people will tell you if you have fun with what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life, is kind of that old saying, right? And I look at it and say, well, sure, if you're a show promoter and you're losing 10 grand a year, you know, at some point, you know, you're either going to keep having your show because all your buddies are there, your one buddy, or you're going to go belly up. But, you know, if it's something like a hobby, like what we're doing, that's why I got home that Thursday and said, you know what, I want to do it. I want to do this episode. And it puts a little pressure on me to get it done, because I woke up, Mike, this is the frustrating thing. So it was one of the rare ones where it didn't go live at midnight because I'm still working on it, believe it or not. So I put it to 8 a.m. I was like, I'll wake up tomorrow. It'll all be uploaded, and it'll be on YouTube. It'll be on all the platforms. I have to, you know, I do all my stuff. Well, I wake up, and the first thing I look at my phone is your video has been removed from YouTube for copyright infringement. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, throw the towel in now, right? So, of course, I go, you know, I look on YouTube, and for anybody that's a YouTuber, you figure out, hey, what's the issue? And before, you used to be able to take any video, Mike, and you could just wipe out the audio, you mute the audio, and you could throw in video. and that video doesn't have audio. So, you know, you're seeing like, okay, it was the Cyndi Lauper video for Goonies Are Good Enough. So I'm like, okay, I'm putting some B-roll footage in there. Even without the audio now, boom, it hits copyright infringement, Cyndi Lauper video. And I'm thinking to myself, nobody's going to come here to watch me rant for an effing hour about this movie that not everyone loves, to watch the Cyndi Lauper video with no audio when you could just go on YouTube and watch the damn Cyndi Lauper video.
Unbelievable.
So I go in there, of course, you know, I had to re-edit it and delete that out and kind of change some stuff and then re-export it. The export takes, you know, I don't know, 30 minutes. But I say all that because, you know, I've even had people in my LinkedIn social media stuff where they look at some of my posts and they go, oh man, you know, you should use other songs and you should do this and you should have more followers. And I've always preached this, and I know some people think I'm crazy. I really don't do it for the numbers. I don't do it. I mean, I do want people to see the content if it's something that I think people will appreciate. But certainly anybody will tell you a lot of people are getting choked down, so to speak, on YouTube these days. Or excuse me, not YouTube, but social media in general, like Facebook and Instagram. You know, I see big accounts that have way more followers, have almost no engagement. So, you know, whenever you see our post, I thank you if you chime in or comment. Because, Mike, and this isn't even a rant, you know, we're kind of turning into like a scroll. I think somebody said like a zombie scroller. If you think about it, because there's so much and you're just going like that, scroll, that's cool, scroll. So, you know, it is getting harder and harder for content creators or people like us to, you know, put something out there. You know, if you're a show promoter, how are you getting traction in that world? So, again, this isn't a rant about any negativity. It's just saying, hey, I was willing to stay up way past my normal bedtime to do something that I love just for the love of it. And if 40 people listened to it and one person liked it, I'm going to keep doing it until I decide, you know what, I don't want to do it anymore, you know? So again, that's a good thing. So, you know, that's not a bad thing. I just, you know, tell people follow your passion. That's all I'm trying to say, Mike.
There you go. No, and hey, that is one thing, especially movies and the Goonies, which was a cult classic, by the way.
Classic.
That is something that you are absolutely passionate about. And I know that firsthand.
Okay, the general update's brought to you by our kinfolk at Southeast Mini Truckin Nationals, also known as Mini Nats. They just concluded the 30th annual every April. You'd have to be sleeping under a rug if you're in our scene and do not know about Mini Nats. Make plans now. Cabins are selling out. We'll see you out there next April, typically the third weekend in April in Maggie Valley, North Carolina. Mike, I got one question for you. Are you ready?
I'm always ready to get it wrong.
All right, Mike, so I got a couple questions for you, and then we'll wrap this stuff up because I know you probably want to get some food. So Ghostbusters Day was just the other day. That's June 8th, okay, which marks the anniversary of, the film that was released, okay? So the first one is a little softball. What year did the first Ghostbuster film come out?
Was it 1984?
Yes!
No, seriously?
You got it. 40 years ago. Shit. 40 years ago, you got it. So that was a softball, but you got it.
Okay.
I mean, it's a softball for, like, you know, a normal movie buff. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Now, here's one that's going to dovetail into another quick ODB quick story. But what was the film rated?
PG-13.
Close. Okay? Oh. And I thought you were going to say that. So here, get this. It was rated PG, but here's the crazy thing. Do you know the first film that was rated PG-13?
No.
Okay. This is a good trivia. It's Red Dawn. Now, it really
was PG-13?
Yes. And it technically came, most people were going to tell you Temple of Doom or Gremlins, and they're kind of right because those are both Steven Spielberg films. But in response to complaints of violence of Temple of Doom and Gremlins, it was Steven Spielberg who came up with a solution. He goes on to say it was sort of a perfect storm of movies that I either produced or directed. Spielberg said in a 2008 video, which was honoring the 40th anniversary of the rating system. Spielberg said he had agreed with the parental objections of Temple of Doom and Gremlins PG rating, but he also thought it would have been unfair to slap an R rating on them, of course, preventing younger kids from seeing them. He goes on to say, let's get a rating somewhere between PG and R. This guy, Jack Valenti, he said he was proactive about it, and then they agreed on the PG-13. And then, of course, on August 10th of 1984, which is 40 years ago, was the first film, Red Dawn, PG-13.
Wow.
Now, I've got one more for you, Mike, and this is an easy one.
I thought Red Dawn was rated R.
I know, dude. Crazy,
Okay.
right? So true or false, Ghostbusters was the highest grossing film of 1984.
I'm going to say false.
And you would be right. You got 2 out of 3, man. So check this out.
Because
the number 1 film was Beverly Hills Cop. And ironically, guess what film was coming back with a new one?
And that's how I knew that it was Beverly Hills Cop, because it's coming out new. Did you see what's releasing on Friday?
This Friday?
Yeah, this Friday.
Okay, wait, hold on. So this Friday is
does ODB not know what movies?
Wait, hold on. I'm trying to think. Hold on a second. Was this a throwback movie?
No, it's not a throwback movie. It's actually a part 3.
Ooh, so if it's newer movies, I don't know newer movies that good.
Oh, come on.
Man, he's trying to reverse the heat, like Bubba would say.
Do I have to start taking away some tick marks from ODB?
Is this I think you do. Is this like let me guess, Guardians of the Third Galaxy Part 9?
No, it would be Bad Boys.
Oh, yeah. Wait, I think that's Part 4, isn't it?
Is it 4?
Or no, maybe it is 3. It's 3 or 4.
Shit, I know it's Ride or Die.
Yeah, something like that.
Or Final Ride or some shit.
But anyway, on July 3rd of 2024 is going to be the new. I'm excited for it. I swear Eddie Murphy doesn't look like he ages at all.
No, absolutely not. That man, I thought these women were out here getting facelifts and shit. Eddie Murphy been in that operation table too.
Oh yeah. Okay, we want to thank our kinfolk at Garage Gear Clothing. They're at various shows throughout the country, where you can visit garagegearclothing.com. Show them some love. They've got some new merchandise. There's also free shipping options available, but you got to go to garagegearclothing.com. Mike, I'm going to make this quick. The scene updates. Shout out to Kickin' It Old School and Slamology last weekend. Tip of the cap to Jeff at Mini Garage, of course, repping Class Act up in the Pacific Northwest. He really, him and his crew brought a lot of good people together. You have Scrapin' the Coast, the 21st to the 23rd. We talked about that in Biloxi. Mini Truck Showdown the same weekend out west, Bakersfield. Classic Truck Throwdown, we mentioned the 29th and 30th of June, kind of that pre-4th of July weekend. Southern Tradition is July 12th, 13th, and 14th, of course, in Canton. Shout out to Waka and the crew. Heat Wave is the 20th through the 21st in Texas Heat Wave. And then, of course, we mentioned the Freakin' Weekend, the 20th through the 22nd, the Freakin' with an IN weekend.com.
September.
And that's, thank you, September.
Yeah,
thank you.
You can still get your tickets. You can still pre-register and get those hotel rooms before they're gone.
Oh, yeah. Scene updates brought to you by our kinfolk at Colorado Custom Wheels. Visit coloradocustom.com if you want the best in billet wheels and steering wheels. Mike, my ODB Live and Uncut, this is quick. I just want to reinforce to people, and I've learned this over the course of time. You know, early in my career, I was always the go-getter saying, yes, I can do that. Sure, right? But something I've learned, and I know Ice-T preaches this, Mike. I don't know how you feel about this, but you have to learn to say no sometimes.
Absolutely.
Now, not every person who asks for a favor is worth your time. Now, I don't mean that in a bad way. Not every question is worth a yes, especially if it adds a ton of undue stress to you or your family. Now, listen, I'm not talking about maybe your best friend, your close friends. You know, that might apply to your situation. But be there for your true friends and family. But something I've learned, Mike, is you can't be afraid to say, hey, I can't do that right now. Mm-hmm. You know, can we try for tomorrow? Can we try for next week? And think about it. The best analogy I can give you, I'm not a fabricator, I'm not a painter, I'm not a builder. But think about how many shops, Mike, don't say no, and then that vehicle sits there for 3 years. And it's like, well, why is the vehicle sitting there for 3 years? And again, I'm not calling anyone out. I'm just giving an example. You know, learn in anything, whether it's your career or your shop or, just different things. You have to kind of learn to say no. And sometimes it could be like, hey, well, can we get to it tomorrow? Sure, no problem. But don't add that extra stress, Mike. We got it too much going on in our lives.
You ain't lying there.
ODB Live in a Cut brought to you by our kinfolk at Local Rides. That's Local RIDEZ Mag. Hit up the team there, Bill and team. They have issues for less than $10. We're going to be at Scrapin the Coast with some new items. So come hit us up there. And in closing words, I just want to say stick with us for Joe's interview. He does fantastic. There's a lot of history about Low Lux. Rest in peace to Beaver. And thank you to Scrapin the Coast and kinfolk for always looking out. We hope to see you in Biloxi in just about a week, Mike, from the time that this airs.
Yes, sir.
Any last words?
Brother, hey, can't wait to see the whole Airhead Nation out there at Scrapin the Coast, Biloxi, Mississippi next week. And hey, with that being said, I want you and Mrs. ODB and little ODB to go out and have a great time on y'all's cruise. And
yeah, we're not going to be there this year. Mike and Shannon will. They're going to hold down the fort.
Yep.
And Mike, do you want to mention who's going to be in our booth?
It's going to be a surprise. Y'all come out and y'all see, because I'll post up a video, and then you'll be able to see who's up there. So either pay attention on social media or you show up. Hopefully you'll show up.
Yeah, and thanks for holding down the fort. My son graduated recently, so this was kind of his going, not going away, but this is his graduation. My mom's going, my nieces, my nephew, so it's going to be a big party. Wish us luck, Mike. The number one thing I never want to do is get sick on a cruise.
Ooh.
So I'll have my scuba mask on the whole time walking around. You know what I mean?
You're the best. Airhead Nation, we're out.
Peace.
Peace.
Hey, I'm super excited, as I mentioned, to sit down with my brother from Severed Ties. I got to get more Severed Ties members on, and it was so unique talking with Joe at Lone Star Throwdown earlier this year, and even going back to Mini Nats a couple years ago in different shows. But Joe, I just got to say, man, thank you so much for sitting down with us here, representing Severed Ties, of course, out of the Ohio chapter, I believe, right? Technically.
Yes.
Yep.
From the Ohio chapter. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. And you technically live, like you were telling me, you're technically in Kentucky, but you're close to kind of where all of the kinfolk is there in Ohio.
Yeah. So I used to be in the Kentucky chapter. Just the drive issue and everything, 4-hour drive plus time change.
Yeah.
And it was just a better fit with Ohio guys. They're, hour and a half, 2 hours away from me. And
good.
I knew all those guys already anyway. So, but totally get along with all the Kentucky chapter guys. Ramsey's a good guy and all them guys over there. So just did a little chapter change.
Yeah, for sure, man. Now, I like I said, I appreciate. I've wanted to help tell this story for a long time, and there's a lot of things I don't know, which is super cool about the truck that we're going to talk about that you're sitting in front of, which I think is so awesome. But before we get started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of like background, like maybe where you grew up and things like that.
Yeah. So my name's Joe Hughes. Live in Mount Sterling, Kentucky. Been in mini trucking. My first show was probably around 97, 98.
Yep.
My brother is the one that actually got me in to mini trucking, and he passed away whenever I was a young age. I was 13 years old whenever he passed away, and he had a little Nissan. Man. Yes, sir. And he had a little Nissan. It's an '88 Nissan pickup hardbody, and back then. Around the early 90s, their juice was, coming out, but it was not affordable for a 20-year-old or whatnot. So we did the typical, lowering blocks and cranking the torsion bars down. And, so my brother, he really got me into it. And then we lost him. And my dad actually kept his truck, until I was able to drive. And at the age of 16, shortly after 16, he gave me his truck. And I've done a bunch of stuff with it. And that's what really got me motivated to stay in it and everything. And actually, I have tried to, work on it myself and build a frame because I can do that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But just with life and everything, I said, you know what? I'm just going to have somebody do it. So, a good another club brother, Nick Woodring with Mutiny Fab and Frame,
Oh yeah.
Frame and Body. He's actually building the truck right now. He just started on it.
Wow, and that was your brother Jay's truck, you said.
Yes, that was my brother Jay, and so he's building a full chassis, and it's going to be a Pittsburgh Steelers type thing because my brother loved the Pittsburgh Steelers football team.
Wow, look
And
at
so
you.
we're going to do a tribute build to my brother and the Steelers and try to wrap it all up to old school mini truck with new school.
Yeah, well, much love to your brother. Hopefully, as many of us believe, in a better place. My wife would have loved to meet your brother Jay because she's a Steelers fan. She came down here 25 years ago or so, just north of Pittsburgh. She lived, and of course, she's always got to remind me of the Wiz Khalifa, which your brother Jay would have loved that song, the Black and Yellow, of
Oh yeah,
course. But
yeah,
that's it's amazing because we're going to talk about a truck in a little while that ties into someone that passed away, one of your club brothers, one of our club brothers, rather. But
yes,
also, when you think about Neil, and his amazing truck, we've got a photo that we'll share with folks later that just really hits you at the core. If you're a hardcore club guy, if you're a mini trucker, if you're really a car enthusiast, automotive enthusiast, and that's the thing. I had gotten a little bit of intel from your wife, and your wife's name was Linda, right?
it's Leslie.
Leslie, sorry, I'm
Yeah, yeah,
sorry about that,
you're
Leslie.
fine.
Yeah, we were chatting, and she gave me a little bit of intel, and what Leslie was telling me is that if you think back to the roots of what gets us into this stuff, right? It's and I even made a post today just talking about what got me into mini trucking on my social media. But if you think about these trucks, they really do. If you go back to the old Wyatt Strange quote that Courtney wrote years ago, and I think Clint Walker, I think, also helped pull that together. But most of us know it as like Courtney Wyatt Strange. But that saying resonates so well with us because these trucks are more than just metal to us, right?
Right, right. They're a lot more than just metal. It's almost kind of like the person is with the vehicle.
Oh
To
yeah,
me it is.
oh yeah.
Um, it's just it's one of those special things.
Yeah, and that's if so many people could think back to their first vehicle or what got them in, salute to your pops for having the foresight to go, hey, I'm going to keep Jay's truck. I
Yep,
mean, what was it? We're talking 94, so we're talking 30 years ago, right? Rest in peace
yep.
to Jay. And if you think about, you got to give a salute to your pops for having the foresight. I'm sure it hit him hard as a younger father, right? 30 years younger. But
Oh
for him to
yes,
go, hey, we're gonna stash this away, and now for his other son to kind of take the bull by its horns and say, hey, we're gonna run with this. Wow, dude, I commend you for that.
yes, yes. My dad is an awesome dad. Um, he's a hard worker, and back in the day he had his Chevelles and everything. He wasn't really into mini trucks, and he kind of still doesn't understand the mini trucks, but he understands that's something that makes me happy, and he does ask, well, what's your brother's truck doing? What's happening with this? And he's wanting updates, and it's been a long time coming. So finally we're going to get some updates for him.
Oh yeah. Now, when you grew up back in the day, Joe, like in your area, your neck of the woods, so to speak, we came from such a great generation, probably similar in age, but do you have fond memories of, like we're the generation that watched Saturday morning cartoons and rode our bikes and things? Like, what were you into like in those early days?
So the early days, I'm originally not from Kentucky. I'm originally from West Virginia, and back there
Okay.
we say West Bygod, Virginia.
Yeah.
So, uh,
Yeah.
but whenever I was growing up, I was a farmer, I guess you could say, and my dad still is. He farms every day. He's baling hay. I talked to him today, and he was baling hay. So whenever I was growing up, I learned to drive at a young age. I mean, my dad put me behind the steering wheel when I was, I guess, probably 7, roughly. And I was driving in the fields, stopping, picking up, uh, they would put me in the driver's seat while they threw hay on the truck and everything. So, I was in the vehicles at a very, very early age and driving tractors and trucks and all this other stuff. And it's,
Wow.
I didn't really have, like, I didn't want the need of watching cartoons and this and that and other. It was,
Yeah.
7, 8 o'clock in the morning, we was down at the farm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can understand that. And I appreciate that honesty and the candor there, because if you think about, we all have different backgrounds. And I often said when I was younger, I remember seeing things on the news about farmers, with the droughts and stuff. And I would always say to myself, those farmers, those hardworking men and women, I never felt like they truly got the respect. And you think about, so often they're up before any of us are, and they're working hard and they're doing all that stuff. So, you know, I would put money on, some of the hardest working. I'm sure your dad, like you said, a full fledged blue blooded American dude out there
Yeah.
hustling and doing the damn thing. And that's a damn good upbringing, dude. Because if you think about, it helps lay the foundation for, my dad used to always talk about Lombardi time, being a Green Bay Packers fan. He said, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late, right? And I'm
Yeah.
sure like your dad, especially coming from that generation, has a lot of those super important things that are instilled in him, getting there on time, getting up and that type of thing. And to me, it's just a tip of the cap, man.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, what brought you from Dub V from West Virginia? I know Daryl Poe is going to be over there doing the Arsenio Hall, right? And some of our awesome kinfolk from West Virginia.
Daryl Poe. Yeah.
DP, man, the big homie. But what brought you from, like, what ended up making you move? Because I'm always curious about that.
So my my father actually got a divorce, and she had moved up to Ohio. So we actually lived in Ohio first, and then we moved down here to Kentucky, and that's how I met my wife and everything, and
Cool.
started life here in Kentucky.
That's great. Yeah, and it's sometimes I envision like how hard it would be for me to move from Florida, because it's really what I know. And you think about, you'll often see people, I know Brad Christman, living in Tennessee, and in some of these photos he'll send me, and I go, man, that's like God's country, and there's a lot of places in West Virginia or even in Kentucky that make me probably feel the same way when you see some of the beautiful areas. So it's definitely a cool place. And I'm always jealous of the mini truckers that live like in Tennessee, Kentucky, of you guys, because, some of you can go 2 hours to a show here, 3 hours this.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was unique, because for us Floridians, or as some people call us, the Floridians, it takes us 3.5, 4 hours to get out of the state. So, you guys definitely have that up on us a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about like because I mean, I'm anxious to talk about Low Lux, and I know a lot of people are going to come here. They want to hear the story, but is there some pieces of the puzzle before that? Like when you get into it, like in high school, living in West Virginia, like did people have mini trucks, like in terms of in your neck of the woods?
Whenever I was growing up, it was basically my brother and one of his friends, and they were the two mini truckers in town. And then, whenever he passed away, I kind of went away from it just for a little while. I didn't have my driver's license. I was still buying, the mini trucking magazines and stuff like that, and taking them to school with me and flipping through the pages, But I guess the bug really hit me back right after I got my driver's license. So, 97, 98, it really hit. And I had built a Datsun 720, and the truck was kind of, it needed a lot of work. It had juice on it. I fixed a lot of the juice on it and everything. And I actually did something crazy. I cut the roof off of it and made it a full-time convertible. We called it the Bondo Bucky. But
Right.
I ended up trading it to a 95 Nissan hardbody with a guy out of North Carolina. And that's whenever I built the Asphalt Assassin. And yeah, so the Asphalt Assassin, I done probably 80 to 90% of the work on it, except the paint.
Yep.
A guy out of Frankfort, Kentucky, painted it for me, and done the airbrushing was by a guy named Little Jack.
Okay.
Super cool guys. But yeah, done the Asphalt Assassin. It got a regular feature in mini trucking and street trucks. And
Yep.
then actually during the photo shoot, I was talking with Brandon Burrell. He was already shooting in. And I was like, man, what do I got to do to get on the cover?
Yep.
And he's like, man, the truck's got to be completely redone. I'm like, okay, I can do this. So fast forward
Yep.
a year and a half, 2 years later, redone the whole entire truck. A lot of arguments with the wife and everything.
Yep.
And, you know, got it done and it got it on the cover of Mini Truckin'.
Yeah, and it was ironic because if you think about, I'm looking here, there were 35 covers out of 269 with a Nissan on the cover.
Yeah.
And what was ironic was I appreciate the support when you were watching one of the flip throughs on our YouTube channel, and you know, I feel like I know a good amount about some of the trucks, but I always tell people I don't know it all. A lot of people have helped me, and it's always great when someone like yourself, you chime in and you go, man, you know, you're probably like going, what the heck's this guy thinking? But then I took my truck to Camp and Drag back in 2012, and
Yeah.
I had gotten your Nissan mixed up with a different truck. And obviously, like, I'm looking at it, I'm going, I know it's not the same truck, but maybe it is in a different world. But it was neat because our paths crossed even then at Camp and Drag, which is one of the coolest shows out there, isn't it?
Yes. Camp and Drag is an awesome show, and I can't wait for this year for Camp and Drag because William's doing something really, really big, and it does involve Low Lux, and I'm super excited for Camp and Drag.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and when you look at, you know, all these different Nissans, to me, you know, yours goes down as one of the cleanest built. You know, it really does. But I did want to hit upon that truck for a moment. Like, what ended up happening to it? Because people are always curious. And there's a whole Instagram page now dedicated to these trucks that I'm not with highlighting. You know, I used to post rest in peace to Ernie. You know, that the time that Ernie's stock truck got hit. And you know, I would sometimes post that, but you know, especially with Ernie being gone. But I don't like to post that. But at the same time, I also like to think of the good times of these trucks. But people are always curious, what happened to this truck?
So this truck, the Asphalt Assassin, is a very controversial truck. Some
Yep.
people just absolutely hate it. Some people absolutely love it.
Yep.
You know, trash talking, what have you.
Sure.
When I had the truck, you know, it ran really good. The first year or two that I got it done, of course, it was a trailer queen because I didn't want to get it messed up before the photo shoot or anything like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
After the photo shoot, it came off the trailer and I drove that truck.
Yep.
Had very few problems out of it. You know, just working some bugs out of it. Ran it out of gas one time going to Camp and Drag,
Yep.
and that was
I
kind of
ran out
fun.
of some gas
But
up there.
I'm not sure exactly what has happened to the truck. The last time that I have heard anything with that truck is it ended up in Florida somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I have heard. If there's any truth to that, I'm not sure, but I
Yep.
heard that it ended up in Florida and it either got trashed or a hurricane swept it out or something.
Yeah. And what I want to do, I was trying to, I'm going to show this photo right here. And that's the thing, like I know me, it's like I do a lot of prep, but at the
Yeah,
same time, what I try to, you know, it's tougher because when you're doing, you know, when you're showing this live, there's a lot more prep that has to go into it. You know, after the fact, I can kind of pull some of this together, but this was the truck here. And one thing that stuck out to me is, you know, especially in that era, you know, around the 2000s, even way past, obviously this was 2012. You can see July 22nd of 2012. It had the stereo, right, with the inverted subs, and like that was
oh
like a
yeah.
big thing then. But when you look at the colors and you look at it being a king cab, you know, Mike would call it an extended cab, but we know it's a king cab, right?
You're
You
right.
know, it's a super awesome truck, and like I said, it's always intriguing to me where the trucks end up because, you know, now in this day and age with social media being so big, like we can usually track all this stuff down, but like even my friend Jimmy at Jimmy's Running Customs, he built the Nissan hardbody that was on the cover of Street Trucks, and after he sold it, it supposedly, believe it or not, went to Ohio. It's funny, you're talking about your truck came down here, his truck went up there.
Yeah.
No one ever saw it again. It's just weird how that happens.
I hope the truck still exists. I do. And I've thought about rebuilding another one just like it.
Yep. Now, I'm curious, when you say it was kind of controversial, like, what were some of the things, was it, what are some of the recollections that you have for people that maybe, was it the mods on the truck, or was it the fact that you drug it and things, and you really drove the truck, if you will, after it was on the cover?
Well, I think what a lot of the problem was is the different owners that it had. Some of them was like, yeah, it was a fine truck, and the other owners were like, oh, it was a wiring nightmare, or it was just built to get on the cover, blah blah blah.
I see.
It was that type of controversial type stuff, and still to this day, that truck can get posted on Mini Truckin' Where Are They Now, and it's just like comment after comment after comment. Some people like, oh, it was a great truck, and then other people, oh, it's garbage, blah blah blah. And
I see what
and
you're saying.
They never owned it. They never owned it. You know what I mean? It's like, okay.
Yeah. And I want to give a shout out to Jason Redden with Mini Truckin' magazine covers. The database that I built, I link out to his Facebook page just because if I'm looking for something quick. But basically, what you have is you have the truck here, and we can see it was February 2012. And what was the other cool thing that was cool about it, and maybe it dawned on me back at Camp Drag, which was July of 2012. It probably did dawn on me because we had both of the trucks, in that same area, and I remember this being on the cover. But when I took that photo, I kind of was like, I didn't even realize almost that it's like, wow, like we have these two trucks that are going to be like, yours was on the cover already, mine hadn't come out yet, and it was kind of neat that they crossed paths.
Yeah.
Now, talk to us a little bit about, because I'm always curious about the backstory with this cover shoot. Any little tidbits you can give us, like where did it go down? Any memories that you have from it?
Oh yeah, I have a good memory with that truck. So Brandon Burrell's the one that shoot it for the cover. So thanks to him. And we shot it at Midwest Mayhem, which is a show that Stephen Early puts on. And so Brandon Burrell got come to that show to shoot it, and he's like, "Man, we have to have rolling pictures. We have to have rolling pictures." And I said, "Okay, no problem." So we jump on New Circle Road. It's early of a morning. He said, "You hug the white line in the slow lane, and there's going to be a friend of mine, which is Gilbert King. He was driving Brandon Burrell's car, and he was told him to hug the other line." And so I'm focusing on trying to be as laid out as I possibly can,
right,
and not paying attention to anything in front of me. And the next thing I know, it sounded like a bomb went off.
Oh boy!
And what it was is the front cross member hit the expansion gap on the bridge, and it sounded like a bomb went off.
Right.
And it done a lot. It done quite a bit of damage. And I ended up having to get a whole nother cross member off of another truck, and it was kind of a big deal to get it fixed. But I got it all back together.
You took skating to a whole new level, Joe.
Yes, and it was skating to a whole new level. You are correct. But I mean, I had it hammered out, and even Brandon Burrell's. Whenever I got pulled over, Brandon's like, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it sounded like a bomb went off in this thing." And he's like, "Dude, trust me, I heard it." Funny story short. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, quick tip of the cap for those that are listening here. Brandon Burrell is a good friend of ours. He had me on his first podcast. If you guys can go over when you get a chance, check out Modified Rides. It's on YouTube, video episodes, but you can also listen through the normal avenues for podcasts. So I wanted to get that little promo in for the homie. He shot 10 covers for those scoring at home on Mini Truckin' magazine. And Joe, yours was the last one that he was credited with. So pretty cool rich history there. But I didn't mean to stop you earlier.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. But yeah, I told him, I was like, dude, it sounded like a bomb went off, and he's like, yeah, I heard it. I heard it. And
Yeah,
that's whenever we heard it. But it was shot at a concrete facility in Lexington, Kentucky.
got it. Now, was that, because I'm kind of curious now, did you shoot it first and then you were doing rolling shots and you ran into that encounter, or did you have to do, like, 'cause it sounds like it all happened that same weekend?
It all happened the same weekend. So he shot it on Saturday evening, um, you know, and then whenever Sunday morning, that's whenever we done the rolling shots.
Oh, yeah. And what I thought was neat about this cover is I've always given Tony Moore and the family over at um, Asphalt Army just such kudos because I love that name. And I always thought like Asphalt, and then you throw in like Assassin was like
Yeah,
boom, you got just a great name. So it had such a cool um, cover with that lettering, of course, back with the vengeance. But you also had the Pacific Northwest in the upper right corner with the tiki truck, which I thought was just super cool. And of course, as you know, this was kind of towards the end. Of course, it's not the end with 2014, but you and we share something that our trucks, in 2012, 2013, towards the end of the original Mini Trucker magazine run. So, tip of the cap to you. Now, at this time, keep me honest, Joe, you weren't in Severed, or
so
were you?
I was petitioning for Severed,
Okay.
and I didn't have my full logo whenever it was shot, and then
Yep.
I believe it was 3 to 4 months later I got my full membership.
Damn, if they could have sped that up, we would have had one more Severed because, I'm keeping tally
Yes.
of all this and I've got all the breakdown. I don't want to give it all the way yet, but it's neat because if you really think it's Severed Ties, we put the flag in the ground, and I got to give a shout out to Rob Scepter, who's no longer with us.
Yeah.
Rob had the first, this blows my mind, the first Severed Ties truck on the cover of Mini Truckin was May of 2000, which is hard to believe because you're like, okay, well, Mini Truckin came out in 88. And of course, Severed built so many awesome vehicles, but just the way it worked out. But from 2000 to 2014, we wreaked havoc on the scene, man. And your truck, to me, really falls into that. You weren't technically in the club then, but you were petitioning, and I appreciate the effort that you put in because that truck, sick in my book, dude. I think a lot of people are
Thank
going
you.
to say, hey, dude, I didn't realize maybe the owner's name and those type of things. But I think really, to give you your flowers and say, dude, that one in itself was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So just curious to kind of wrap this piece of it up. How long do you end up keeping the truck? Like, is it a year or two, and then you decide to sell it?
So it was on the cover, and I think it was roughly 2.5 to 3 years that I ended up keeping the truck longer. And
Yep,
and the only reason that I got rid of the truck is because I wanted to get started on my brother's truck. And
got it.
intro wheels had come out. They were kind of fresh on the market, and not
Yep,
many people had them at all. And I was like, man, those would look so badass on a hard body, with the big
yep,
deep
yep.
dish and everything. And so I sold the truck um, to a gentleman in Ohio, and he took really really good care of it. And then he had it, I think, for roughly around a year maybe, and then he sold it, and that's kind of when it went downhill. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but
And if
I ended up
anybody's
buying a
listening,
set of wheels for selling that truck.
ah, yeah, yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And where prices have went, it's been insane. But if anybody knows where the truck's at, let us know. Also, Jimmy Graham's hard body. Well, it was uh, a hard body with the Frontier front end. His went, of course, up. We heard, my recollection is Ohio, some guy that owned a car dealership or some collector or something similar to that. But so you end up selling that, and you were going to maybe start on Jay's truck. Rest in peace to your brother.
Yes.
Now, in a moment, I want to talk about someone near and dear to your heart, and so many of us in Severed. I did not personally know him, but kind of help us understand the story. So you go, hey, I'm going to start working on this Nissan. What ends up kind of happening in between there? Does life get in the way, or do you end up saying, hey, when this other situation presents itself, how does all that come together?
So I ended up building I ended up getting a shop, And me and my wife picked up a CNC table and started doing stuff, metal art and everything. And life just kind of went away for a little bit. And I ended up
Yep.
buying a 79 GMC crew cab dually. Got the rig wheels, ended up doing I didn't do like a body drop on it or anything like that. Done a engine swap, done a 12 valve Cummins in it, and it's the black and blue dually. And I kind of just run around with that dually for several show seasons. And the truck kind of just spiraled a little bit. It just didn't do a whole lot. And again, life got busy, and now I'm just like, okay, it's going somewhere. It's got to get done.
Yep. So what I want to do here is, we have a lot to help kind of tell this story. And what I thought we could do is, let me do this really quick. Let me go here. Okay, I'm going to keep bouncing around and driving people crazy. So now, going back a couple of years from now, and if I remember correctly, so like if we look at the screenshots on this, I want to say it was October 2021 when many people know him as Beaver. Talk to us a little bit about losing a club brother and kind of what happened, just for those that may not know, however much detail you want to go into.
Right. So everybody knows him. Most everybody calls him Jeremy Beaver or Beaver. His name is Jeremy Jenkins. That's his last name is actually Jenkins. But
That's
he was from Beaver.
name.
Yeah, but he was from Beaver, Ohio. That's how he got his nickname. He was born in April of '79, and he ended up getting COVID and passing away on October 2nd of 21.
Yeah, and Jared Johnson here with a screenshot. If you're watching us on YouTube here, where do I even begin? This is going back to, again, October 2nd, 2021, which ties into what Joe just mentioned. My heart hurts finding out that one of my best friends passing away early today, and you can kind of see the rest of it there. And like, my understanding was, I know we're going to kind of start the story of Low Lux, right? Kind of talking about after your dually, but
yeah,
my understanding was like he was really building steam with it, and I just want to say, condolences to the family. I know, he was one of the great club members that was lost, unfortunately, way too soon. And to any of his family members that happen to hear this and his loved ones, rest in peace. I wish I would have known him better or had a chance to meet him. But I know he's in a better place, hopefully, and rest in peace to him.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, so that's a tough thing to transition off of. But what would you like to share when you think back to the Chevy love? Like, is there any like history that you know of? Because I believe this truck goes all the way back to like the Mike Alexander days, right? And it was the famous, and I didn't have a chance to grab, and I'll probably do it in social media, that famous Lowrider Depot, to give them a shout out. Mike Alexander's rendering kind of image, if you will, appeared in there. But for those that don't know, Joe, that was the same truck, right? Going back all those years.
Yeah, so that was the same truck. This is the one that kind of took off in Mini Truckin magazine when Mike was running it.
Yep.
The truck is a 1972 Toyota Hilux. And Mike Alexander, if I'm not mistaken, and I want to go ahead and apologize to anybody if I mess up names or forget people or whatnot. But Mike Alexander, if I'm not mistaken, had bought it off a gentleman in California, and his name is Wayne Hammer.
Got it.
And then that's whenever Mike kind of enlisted and got an idea of everything that he wanted to do. So
here's an early photo, by the way, too, right?
Yes, that's the day that Mike got it. That's its stock form, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But he enlisted several guys, and they got together and got a game plan with it. And from my understanding, this truck was never supposed to run, drive, stop, or anything. It was simply just going to be a trailer queen build, and have a lot of uh, technology, I guess you could say, into the truck, cutting edge type designs. Um, Jamie Jordan he was involved with a little bit of the truck, and he done like the seats and the core support. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and they were trying to get it ready for a show, which was Forbidden Fantasy.
Got it. I
And
remember seeing that in the coverage.
yes, yes, and they got it. They did it. They did get it there. Let's see, Bobby, Bobby from Sadistic Ironworks.
Yep.
He's the one that built the full frame. Um, and then Bob Grant, he done a boatload of sheet metal work on it. The
Mm-hmm.
bedsides are one off. The back of the bed is one off. There's a lot of one off stuff on this truck.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Joel from Mindless Metal Fab, I believe they're out of Canada.
Okay.
This was before CNC tables were really, really big. He's the one that cut a lot of the sheet metal work and done a lot of the metal work and cutting it to get it ready for them to install or weld together or what have you.
Oh yeah.
Um, so there was several people that was involved to try to get it to Forbidden Fantasy.
Yep. Back in the day.
Yes.
And so I'm going to share some more photos here in a second.
Yeah.
The thing that was always intriguing with me with it is even going back to the days with Courtney, there would be like tech articles, right? Because you have these guys working for the magazine, and let's be honest, like most of us realize that a lot of these guys at the magazine, they didn't make a lot of money. They had very unique opportunities. Sometimes they would, get some things here and there. They could do some exposure for companies.
Right.
Bobby from Sadistic Iron Works, and you think about just how much innovation he's done over all the years, and Mike teamed up with a lot of these guys and stuff. But it was always intriguing to me because, like, sometimes, like, even with some of the stuff that Courtney did back in the day, like, you'd see a couple tech articles and then you wouldn't hear anything about it. Low budget build, this and that, and that would happen. That was just like a nature of the beast, right?
Right.
So, as far as your recollection, right, you're kind of painting the picture for us, and this is good. Where does the truck end up kind of going from there, as far as what you know?
So from what I have learned, and Scott Christian, he's another club brother,
Oh yeah.
and he's in the Ohio chapter. He's the one that actually got it from Mike Alexander. Um, you know, uh, uh, Bob Grant and Sadistic and all that. Once they got the truck to a certain point of all the fabrication and everything, Mike kind of lost interest in it, and it was kind of just put on the back burner with him. And
Yeah, it's an advantageous
Scott,
project, right? It's a project
right,
that people
right.
have to put a lot of money in to just even get it going to the next level.
Correct, correct. And Scott Christian, he reached out to Mike Alexander. They struck up a deal, and Mike actually put it on a transport truck and sent it to Ohio. And Scott Christian, he got a hold of the truck, had quite a bit of rust. He cleaned the rust up, because this is all metal work. So he cleaned the truck up. He done several things to it. He bought several parts for it. Anything from like the gauge cluster, the digital decoded gauges. He
Mm-hmm.
bought the Willwood stuff for the brakes. I mean, he spent a lot of money on this. And that whenever he got the truck, that's whenever I first seen the truck with my own eyes and was able to touch it. Um, and the funny story is that, I believe he was having a Halloween party, and, all the Ohio guys were there. Even Jeremy was there, and we was all partying and everything, huddled around the truck. And I'm like, man, this truck's pretty badass. but I don't, it's not my cup of tea, if you say. And but that's when I first laid my eyes on the truck, and it was in raw metal. Um, you know, Hector, which is Chad Ants, he helped Scott Christian on it quite a bit, and Matt Cooper, another club brother, he helped Scott with it. Um,
Yeah,
and
Matt had the yellow S10 extended cab.
uh,
Remember? I
I'm
think
not sure if he had a yellow S10.
going
He's
back
had,
on.
yeah, he's had several vehicles.
Okay.
Um,
Now, circa what year are we talking? We're talking like 2010-ish. We're talking 2015.
man, um,
Just gauging.
I would say probably around, yeah, probably around 17, 16, around through there, 15 to
Okay.
17,
Yeah,
roughly.
just to kind of put it in perspective for folks.
Yeah, yeah.
So when obviously you've got this mythical West Coast truck, right? Editor
Yep.
of Mini Truckin magazine had his hands on it. Some of the biggest names on the West, or arguably in the industry, with Bob Grant and so on, having contributed something towards this awesome project. Obviously, it's pretty advantageous, to take this on. What did you do you remember? Like, did Beaver? Was it one of those things where like they were working on it some, or like did they ever take it to a show here and there, or kind of what was your recollection of
So,
that?
uh, I know Scott Christian took it to one or two shows, possibly
Oh, that's
more.
right, because Scott got it first. That's right.
Yes, because Scott had it first, and if I'm not mistaken, Scott had showed it when it was just a bare frame, and it was kind of like a orangish red type look. It
Yeah,
wasn't the gloss red; it was like an
it
orange
wasn't this
type
red.
color.
Yeah,
No,
yep,
that's the painted red. I
yeah.
think
And I'm just kind of
that
scrolling
last
through some
picture,
of
yeah.
these. Yep.
And so he took it to a few shows, and then life happened with him. He traded it and plus got some cash out of it, I believe, to a guy that's in No Regrets. And I'm not for sure what his name is.
Yep.
And
Got it.
when the truck, that guy, No Regrets, he had it for, I'm not sure how long he had it. I'm assuming probably several months to a year. And then the
Yep.
truck went to Anthony Carey. Anthony Carey ended
Okay.
up with it.
Got it. Now, if I was a betting man, I'd say Scott Christian took this photo. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. He took that photo. That dude can pull some hot women and take some pictures. I mean, he takes some badass pictures. He really does.
Yeah, we're just gonna leave it on this photo for the rest. Let
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah. Yeah, uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. So
Sorry, Leslie.
right, I was gonna say Leslie's a good support. She's looking out for you. So when and obviously, and it's much like shout out to our brother from the West, Chad Lucas, right? His Pathfinder. Some of these trucks
Yep.
that have taken on a life of their own, so to speak, in terms of the ambiance of it, right? That
hmm
people know the names of these trucks and stuff. This one, surely in my book, was one of those trucks, right? So it bounced from the West to the Midwest, and it kind of moves around to a couple key players. People get excited, they get it. They kind of go, man, wow, this is going to be a lot of money, or I don't have the time. All that stuff kind of sets in. That's how things get punted, if you will,
Right,
to use Richard
right.
Rawlings's terms. But so when do you recall Beaver obtaining the truck?
So Anthony Carey had it for several months to a year as well. And then that's when the truck sparked Jeremy's interest.
Yep.
And Jeremy and one of our best friends, they're kind of the three amigos, is what I call us, which is me, JC, and Jeremy. Um, you know, him and JC went up to Anthony Carey's and looked the truck over and everything, and that's whenever Jeremy struck a deal with Anthony Carey to bring it back to Ohio, and
Got it.
that's whenever he decided that he was going to do that adventure.
Yeah, because he saw a vision. He knew that he wanted this truck, and it was something that he was like, hey, let's make a deal because I know I can finish this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when he ended up getting the truck, what was your recollection? Like, did you, were you guys close enough that like some of you guys would go over there and help him sometime, or was he kind of like a hands-off guy where it was like, hey, nobody's going to see this thing until it's finished? What are some of your recollections there?
Jeremy is the type of guy that he did not want nobody seeing anything whatsoever
Okay,
until it was 100% done. Like, he was very against that type. He would like,
got it.
I'm not sending you nothing. And I'm like, dude, we're buddies. You can send me it. I'm not going to post it. He's like,
Right,
no,
I'm not the
nope, nope.
paparazzi, right? But that's the way he was, right?
Yes, he was very much like that. He did not want to share hardly anything unless, it was 100% done.
Got it.
That was Jeremy.
So when Jeremy has it, rest in peace to Jeremy Beaver, as many of the club mates and folks in the scene know him. We're talking a few years, give or take, that he has it. You guys don't hear much about it. It sounds like, though, that he was making some progress.
Yes, he was making progress, whether people knew it or not. Jeremy had, he had enlisted with Ronnie Wells, which is negative camber, and he struck up a deal with Ronnie to do the paint job and the body work and everything. And Ronnie is a super great guy, and very particular on his body work and his paint. I mean, the guy is bar none, probably one of the best in the business, as far as paint jobs. Um, he's the type of guy
I've
that,
heard that.
yes, he's the type of guy that if it says that a primer is supposed to cure for a month, he's going to wait a month and a half. He's just he's that good. And I always, whenever Ronnie freshened the paint up and everything, I always told him, I'd look at him and say, yeah, it's in paint prison. That's all what I always call it. It's either paint prison or interior prison, one of those type of prisons. But Ronnie's a super great guy, top notch on his work and everything.
Yeah, hardworking dude. That's what I've heard. So my understanding is Beaver has the truck. He's got this vision. He's plugging away on it, and it comes to a period where unfortunately the world lost him way too early. We briefly hit upon that, and again, rest in peace to him, and much love to his loved ones and the legacy that he leaves behind. When that tragic event happens, talk to us a little bit about. Obviously, I knew people aren't reaching out going, hey, I want to buy this truck, right? I mean, we always say it, health and family and, everyone's lives. That's the most important thing. Does it come to a period where, and again, you may not want to go into too much detail, but does someone, does the family eventually go, hey, we need to move on, and sell the truck? Again, I know it's a touchy subject, but I just want to see like how you ended up acquiring it is all I'm asking.
So I got to back up just a little bit. So whenever,
Sure.
So when Jeremy, he passed away from COVID, and when Jeremy had COVID, me and him had COVID at the same time. I had tested positive at work, and he had tested positive like a day or two later. And I guess probably day 3, day 4, it was so bad on me that I couldn't even sleep. Like, I could not lay down and sleep. Like, literally, if I slept, I was straight up on a couch for 3 days straight. Like, I was just sitting down on the couch. I could not lay down. Just as soon as I laid down, I would stop breathing. I couldn't breathe. Day 3 or 4 was bad for me. And that's whenever I learned that Jeremy had it as well, and they actually took him to the hospital. And I immediately texted him, and I was like, hey man, we're going to get through this, blah, blah, blah. And so that, I felt like I need to tell people that, because he was getting worse. I was starting to get just a little bit better, and then it just turned even worse for Jeremy after those several days. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, is it going to do it to me too? And so it was scary. It was very scary.
Yeah, and something I've said over the course of time is, I think the world we live in, there's a lot of different people. Everybody has their views, and we're not going to go down that bunny trail. But
Right.
I always caution people. We see people in third world countries, and they're struggling sometimes, and we have it so good here, and things are good, and I caution people, don't jump to a conclusion and go, oh, this stuff's not real or this or that, because everybody, again, some people have their views on and just even different things, even with shots with children. There's strong opinions on certain things, on anything medical. But I've always tried to kind of keep a lot of that. I mean, COVID brought out a lot of stuff where a lot of us had to openly talk about it because we were losing friends, unfortunately, like Beaver. But I always caution people, don't just go, oh yeah, don't make jokes about things where people are, just off the top of my head, I think of Neil, I think of Beaver, I think of Greg Miller, and I think of Ernie. Those are just the four that come to my mind. Just those four in the scene that, arguably these guys were guys that people love. They were beloved,
Yeah.
We don't all have, people that, not every single person loves us, but I guarantee a couple of those guys, every single person that knew him loved him,
Yeah.
So if not all, but I just caution people to think about that, because there were people that generally, and all of us are different, knock on wood. I've been the type of person that I don't want to jinx anything, but it's like I've been a healthy person. I've never broken a bone, as an example, and things like that. But that doesn't mean that the next guy doesn't. So that's all I wanted to say.
Right. Yep. So, we lost Jeremy on October 2nd. I got the phone call from JC. And I'll tell you what, that was probably the hardest phone call that I had ever taken. Besides my brother, that it's just a hard conversation. That me and JC had together. And so, the funeral arrangements were made and everything. They had the funeral. Jamie, which is Jeremy's wife, and Jordan, his son, I still feel for them today. And from time to time, I call and check on them and let them know what the truck's doing or where I'm going or whatnot. But it was probably roughly a month and a half to 2 months after Jeremy had passed. Me and my wife, we was sitting on the front porch. It was cold. I remember that. And, I was just reminiscing about stuff that me and Jeremy and JC or whatever, in life, what we was doing or whatever. And it hit both of us at the same time. And I looked at my wife and I was like, I don't know what Jamie's plans are with the truck, but I feel like I need to reach out to her. And, I would like to finish this truck in his memory. And her eyes just lit up. Leslie's eyes just lit up. She's like, I was thinking the same thing just now too. So, it was the very next day I called Jamie and I was like, Jamie, I need to have a conversation with you about this truck and Jeremy's wishes and everything. And me and her, had a big long 2-hour conversation and we struck up, a deal or whatnot. And, I killed my 401k at work. And, because I wanted to give her as much money as I possibly could for the truck because the truck is worth it. Especially for me to finish it in one of my best friend's memory, in his wishes.
Yeah, it's commendable. And I know it's obviously a touchy subject, but I think like you handled it with kid gloves, as my friend Oldie would say, and you went about it the right way. And and again, I could only imagine. So again, rest in peace to Beaver and to his wife and son. Again, our heartfelt condolences go out to you both, as well as the legacy that he leaves behind. So you have this kind of tough conversation, but maybe a little bit of some tears during that conversation, but maybe some smiles towards the end to say, wow, let's carry on this legacy. And obviously with him passing in October of 2021, I believe it was,
Yep.
you start to go, you're moving in, like you said, the dead of the winter into 2022, which to me, for those scoring at home, I mean, is only not even 2.5 years ago. So when you end up getting this truck, Joe, do you fast track in your head this plan to bring this thing together to debut it in about a year and a half? Because I think it was, I don't want to go too far ahead, but it was Severed in the Midwest, I want to say, is where you debuted it.
Yeah. So I debuted at Severed in the Midwest. It wasn't running at the time. Again, the truck wasn't supposed to run and everything. So it was still a Walmart cart, I guess you could say. But whenever me and Jamie had the conversation, and me and JC went and got the truck and the trailer and everything, I was lucky enough that Jeremy had already talked to Ronnie about the paint. And, the truck was actually already painted and the frame was already painted. So Ronnie already knew what his job was. And then I had contacted, me and JC had talked, and he told me what interior guy that Jeremy had wanted to go with, and that it was Tyler Smith. And so I contacted Tyler Smith and I was like, hey, I have the truck. We need a game plan to get this interior wrapped up and done, and this is when it needs to be done, blah, blah, blah. And he already had the direction of what Jeremy wanted. So basically everybody that, had a part in the truck, from Ronnie Wells to Tyler Smith, and then, with a lot of conversation with JC Millette, everybody kind of knew what Jeremy wanted. And so it was basically just trying to get it through the finish line to that. The
Which
other
is no
thing
easy
that I
task.
was,
Which is no easy task.
right. So, the only big hurdle that I really had to figure out was the wiring. Jeremy had bought a wiring harness, but, we all know with these wiring harnesses, it's just not a plug and play. You have to modify these wiring harnesses and everything else. But I had another club buddy tell me, hey, reach out to Scott McAllister. And I actually talked to him at the show at Severed in the Midwest whenever it was there and not running. And he said, yeah, he said he would be interested in it or whatnot. And then, I don't know, probably 6 months after that, I contacted him. I'm like, hey, man, I've got brakes, I've got interior in, I've got all this stuff, and the truck is back together. I just need some wiring. And so he drove all the way down. I think he drove roughly 5 hours just to come look at the truck to see what he needed to order or what he needed or whatever. That way he knew what he had to have whenever the truck showed up. That way he could just kick ass.
Wow.
And I really appreciate that. So, he went back, he got everything ordered. He's like, hey, man, I'm ready to rock and roll. So we loaded the truck up. We took it up to Indy, and he wired the truck front to back. And it, everything is flawless, all of his wiring and everything. And I really
Next
appreciate
level.
that. Yeah, it's just next level. I mean, the wiring
Now, who was
is
that
amazing.
again?
It's Scott McAllister. He's
Scott
got an old
McAllister.
school.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, he's got an old school S10
Yep.
with a snug top on it, and then he also has a Regal that has some sort of 2.3 motor in it, and it's turboed, and it's on juice, and it does a gangster 3-wheel on. And
Dude, I sounds
yeah,
like a cool dude. I gotta meet him if I haven't already.
yes,
Um,
yes, He's out of the
And
Indiana chapter.
yeah, that's awesome. If I haven't met him, I got to meet him. But what's awesome is, like, you talk about this group effort, and I think when you look back in the history books of mini trucking, right, this mini truck lifestyle, this our lifestyle, so many trucks, in my opinion, so many of the greatest trucks were crossed the finish line by these efforts of, horse trading some workout, or someone, giving someone a call on a late night after work and, hey, could you help me with this? And I tell you, man, it gives me goosebumps to think that, in my life, like, I sometimes will struggle to, like, maybe ask for help, like, unless I'm in dire, like, hey man, like, I can't push my truck by myself. Can someone come help me? Okay. I can ask for help then.
Yeah.
But I just love hearing these stories when somebody goes, hey, I made some phone calls and a guy drove 5 hours, and this guy, these folks, they appreciated the fact that this truck needed to cross that start finish line. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think for the mini trucking culture, it was huge. But, to Beaver's legacy, and some of the folks that worked on it, even to the West, I mean, dude, that was like, dude, flag in the ground, man. Let's do this.
Right. Yeah, and once Scott got it wired and I got it back, there was still a lot of work to do, because I'm the type that I don't want a truck that's a pusher. I just can't do
Sure.
it. So whenever I got it back, this motor, the motor was built by DOA out of Arizona, and it puts
Okay.
out some crazy horsepower. It's a special motor. It's like one of 5 in the world, because it's a 20R with a 22 RE internals and head and everything. There's a lot going on with
Wow.
this motor, and I was scared to death to try to get it going, because I was afraid something was going to happen on it again, because it's so rare.
Yeah, you're
This
like, I'm from
motor.
West Virginia, man. We got Chevy
Yeah,
350s.
yeah.
What the hell is going on
That's
here?
right. That's right. So the motor was built back in '07, I think it was, around then. So you're talking
Uh-huh.
about a motor that has been built for over 15 years that's never been
15.
fired.
Right. And as
And
we,
that's what I
most
was
of us
scared
know,
about.
that's,
Y-
yeah,
By
a
that
little
time,
scary.
the assembly lube has already dissipated and everything. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
But
Now, where were do you recall where these photos were taken?
um.
These are some I had snagged. I didn't know
So
if this
that
was,
photo, yeah, that photo was taken at Ronnie's shop.
okay.
That's whenever, I believe that's right after he set the cab on the frame.
Yeah, and he might be the guy that has, I've seen videos and photos where the guy that's got all the Rangers.
Oh yes, that's Ronnie. That's Ronnie Wells.
Yeah, I've seen
He's
his stuff
saved in
before.
my
Him and
phone
the cab.
as a lot of us call him Ranger Ronnie.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I've heard of this guy. I like this guy already.
Yeah. We
um,
all call him
so
Ranger Ronnie, and he's got a really cool shop and everything. And like again, he does some really awesome paint work and body work and everything.
yeah. So when you think about, right, so you're helping tell the story. I'm not trying to fast forward this or anything, but
Yeah.
when you are, what are some of the other things, you're talking about, you mentioned the interior, you mentioned the engine, you're kind of going through with it. So we're at a good pace here, but
Yeah.
what are some of
So
the other things that you're having to really dial in?
So this picture that you have up right now is at Jeremy's funeral, actually.
I'm sorry, man. So that was back. Okay, got it. That was at October 2021.
Yep, that's that truck was at his funeral.
Now, to put it in perspective, I think it's important to show this because, one, you've got the unity of the club for their brother Beaver, but at the same time, it also kind of puts a little perspective on how far he had pushed the truck ahead, right? It
Yes,
wasn't just, it just wasn't just a cab. It wasn't just a
right.
frame. I mean, here we can see, wow, it had really moved ahead.
Yep. Jeremy
Now,
never did get to see the only thing that I know that Jeremy didn't get to see, he didn't get to hear it run or see it drive. He didn't get to see the interior in it. The only thing I believe that he was able to see was the completed chassis with the cab on it. and the bed.
Got it.
That's as far as he got to see it.
Yeah, understood. Now, were there any other key players that you wanted to mention, as you're doing this build up, if you will, to Severed in the Midwest, right? Because if you think about it, again, for those scoring at home, you acquired this truck in the winter of 2021 into 2022. Severed in
Yeah,
the Midwest is August of 2023, if I remember correctly.
yeah,
So you basically thrash for a year, call it a year and a half, and you get this thing across the finish line. Now, like you said, it wasn't fully running. There were some things you needed to dial in. But is there anything else that you wanted, to kind of mention?
yeah. So Scott, he done the wiring. Whenever I got it back from Scott, um, I contacted a lot of the Ohio guys, and I was like, hey guys, I need help. If you can just come put stuff together or whatever, I'll give you something to do. So JC Millette, he come down, Robbie Morse, he come down and helped, and they're just a lot of the Ohio guys that they helped. Scott Benningfield, thanks to him, because it's got the intro wheels on it, and I hate polishing wheels. I hate it with a passion.
Not more than
And
me. Sorry.
yeah. And so Scott, he come down, he grabbed up the wheels and took them back up to Ohio with him and polished them to perfection. Um, you know, there was several people that wasn't able to come down and help on it, but they were doing other stuff because, not only was it for Jeremy, but Neil's truck was going to be there too. They wanted both trucks, you know, from Jeremy and from Neil to be at Severed in the Midwest, and they wanted them to be on display. So Matt Cooper, he done a skateboard deck in memory of him and everything, and it was awesome.
Yeah, and
It's
for those
just
scoring at home, what I want to reinforce is I want to paint the picture for a couple things. So the reason why, and I'm kind of going through these photos a little fast, looking for one in
yeah,
particular, if I can find it. This I just love. Anytime we've lost members, for the most part, the club rallies together and they'll put together a similar themed uh, decal sticker, if you
uh-huh,
will, to commemorate the person that we've lost, and obviously Jeremy Beaver, rest in peace. The Here's one of my other favorite photos, by the way.
oh yeah,
I don't know why. I
absolutely,
just love those wheels. But in all seriousness, so a couple things to reinforce. Number one is Severed in the Midwest, the year that we're talking about, is the 30th anniversary for the club. That's the 30th anniversary celebration. The 10th they do out at Rezo. I was at that one. The 20th they're at Showfest. And then
uh-huh,
they kind of have been able to bounce it around. So I didn't make it, unfortunately, up here to Severed in the Midwest. But not only do you have the 30th anniversary, you painted the picture, you have Neil Stark, rest in peace, on the left with his truck, his Ford
hmm
Courier, and then you have the Toyota Hilux that was Jeremy Beaver's on the right, and you have this amazing, I want to say Thad did that
yeah.
sign. I
Thad
could be
Thad
wrong.
Thad done that,
Thad, yep, petitioner for Severed, my brother from another mother. But
absolutely,
this was a high magnitude show for the club and really for the scene. There's a lot of rich history of people going to this event. And I want to just say for a moment too, to Neil Stark, man, I got a chance to meet the guy before, and he was also lost to this similar thing that we've been talking about. And it's just, these two trucks together give me goosebumps. And
yes,
I'm so sad that we don't have our brothers here with us anymore.
yeah. Me too.
So,
There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about Jeremy or whatever, because Jeremy was he was the type of guy. He would just I'm a third shifter, and he would literally just stop by at 7 o'clock in the morning because he was always traveling to buy logs or whatnot. He was in the lumber business, and he traveled to buy logs and run his own log yard and everything. And he was just that type of guy. He would call and stop by anybody's house. And it's terrible that we lost these two. And Neil was such a great guy. I mean, that dude knew everybody. Neil did. and everybody knew
Yeah,
him.
and I want to point something out, and you mentioned this earlier, like if you look at this sticker here, which I believe was just a beautiful tribute on front of the truck, and it says 1979 to 2021. I was born in 1978. I think we sometimes say this and we maybe talk amongst our friends, but if you really put it into perspective, I mean, we're losing people all the time. And I understand this can happen at any point, but a lot of us are getting to that middle age. I mean, I'm 45 years old now. When I hear of someone that is around my age that we lose, right? Just the other day was Morgan Spurlock. Some people loved him, some people didn't, but he was famous for the supersize, me. And I know he
Yeah.
had some challenges in his life that maybe possibly contributed to that. I don't know, but I mean, 53 years old, right? And you look at how young Beaver was. I think like it just puts it in perspective that we have to be thankful for every moment we kind of have, because truly, I know people say this, you've heard this, like there's no tomorrow is not guaranteed for any of us. You know what I mean?
Never is.
Yeah. So, you're still thrashing away, and you basically get to the finish line at that point, which was severed in the Midwest 2022 for the 30th annual or 30th severed anniversary.
Yep. The truck was 100% together for the severed 30th. And that's kind of like the last show for me for the year. And then the very next year is whenever it went to Mini Nats. And at Mini Nats, of course, we had to contact Mike Alexander to see if it could be in the airlift booth and he could see his old truck in person. And so all winter long, I worked with trying to get the truck running. There's a guy that lives one county over from me. I call him the Toyota God. His name's Tracy, and he knows any and everything about Toyotas. And he was really freaked out whenever he walked in my shop and realized what motor was in this truck.
I bet.
I thought for a minute he was going to kill me and just take the truck. But you know, he knows a lot of information with Toyota, and he's the one that actually helped me get it running. And we contacted DOA and got it running, and it went to Mini Nats, and everything from there is pretty well history. Took it to LST for the first time in February, this past February, and that was a great time.
Yeah, and I got to show this photo, and I'm so thankful that you had shared it, because it's like we share so many photos and we don't there's so many awesome moments, and the Severn has such a great camp at Lone Star Throwdown, one of our favorite shows. Now, it was, I would say, I hate to use the D word, but it was a little dusty this year, and we understand, right? It's been a drought in some of the parts of the country, but it was so cool to link up with you and to take this photo, because I just thought to myself, like, your wife Leslie, she mentioned same thing you did. It's more than trucks. It's relationships, it's friendships, it's people meet their loved ones at these shows and things, right? And to be able to throw up the diamond, and think of some of the brothers and sisters that we've lost over the course of time, and think about the legacy of this truck. And some of these trucks never get finished.
Yeah, there's a lot of trucks that doesn't.
Yeah,
I like to call that. I like to call the dust there in Texas, Texas metal flake is what I like to call it.
Hey, I like it. I like it. And I refused to talk about it for months, because it was like all people were mentioning, and I'm thinking to myself, hey, listen, the dust can. Now, granted, you have a black truck, so if there's anyone, Joe, that could talk about it, you could, because my brother from another mother, Vic, he always tells me he would never own another black vehicle because he loves detailing, and he said they're too hard to detail. But I totally get it. But we had such a good time, and it was so neat. Like when I saw the truck next to my truck, I was like, man, like I felt honored, because I'm just a normal guy, like that just likes mini trucks, I'm fortunate Jimmy built my truck and stuff, but to have a storied truck like yours, Low Lux, that's Toyota Hilux, it's not a Chevy Love. It was amazing to see it there, man. And you had to have had a good feeling to have it there.
So it was a very good feeling, and I don't have really nothing worthy of taking to LST. I mean, I've got the dually that I could take to LST, but I'm not trailering that thing. You know, it would be driven, and I don't know if I'd want to drive that far. But
Right.
the reason I did take it to LST is because that was one of Jeremy's wishes. That's what he talked about. He talked about, you know, whenever this truck's done, it's going to LST. I'm taking it to LST. And, you know, so
Wow.
that was the main reason I took it there. Now that I've went to LST and I see what it's all about, I'm already making plans of being there for next year.
Hey,
I've
that's a
already
plug
got
for one of our favorite shows, Lone Star
I've
Throwdown.
already got, you know, I've already got my hotel room reserved, and the wife loved the show so much that she's wanting to go back as well. So
Dude,
we've already got our reservations, and we're ready to rock and roll and go back next year.
Joe, if there's one thing I learned about you, you got to keep her of a wife. She's holding it down.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now, so briefly, I want to, because I know I kind of went through a piece of that, but some of these photos, if you think about, again, going back a year, you're in the airlift booth, and I want people to kind of see some of these, because you basically, after Severed in the Midwest, you thrash on it. Give or take 6-8 months later, you're at Lone Star Throwdown, and I'm going to kind of go through some of these. You can see all the work that's went into this chassis, which is just in itself is insane. The amount of work that went into it. The rest in
Hmm.
peace, Justin Beaver. And I'm going to get to some of these other ones here. Some of these, of course, are from Severed in the Midwest, from unfortunately the funeral. Who's in this photo?
So Jeremy is at the top left. Uh,
Right here.
the other guy is me kissing him on the cheek. And then
Got it. Okay.
Jamie is right below him, and then Leslie's right beside me. And
Yeah, Leslie. And then,
that picture was taken at SEMA on Fremont Street.
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Some of the things I'd like to hit upon this briefly. Some of the neat things about this truck is the shifter glows.
Yeah, so that was kind of weird how that shifter come about. Um, I really had a hard time coming up with a shifter for this truck. I didn't know if it needed
Uh-huh.
to be made out of wood or whatnot, because, it's got wood airbrushing in it. But
Yep.
in a way, I wanted to do something for myself to remember Jeremy in. And one night I was working on something in the interior. I was by myself in the shop. It was probably 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then all of a sudden it hit me like a big hammer in the top of my head. That this idea that come up. So I got online. I found some acrylic clear rod, and then the part that's on top of it is actually a diamond urn. And
Yeah.
with
And
it being
I
in
want right here.
severed, and with both of us being in severed, and throwing the diamonds up, everything, I thought to myself, I need something diamond shaped, and luckily I found a diamond urn. And so I attached that to that rod and made a gear shifter out of it. And I said it needs to be lit up. I contacted Jamie because I knew Jeremy had been cremated. So I got some of his ashes, and his ashes are
Wow.
actually in the gear shifter in the truck. So
Wow.
whenever I'm changing gears, he's right there with me changing them.
That's heavy, man. To quote Doc Brown in Back to the Future, that's heavy, dude. Um,
Yep.
yeah, here's a photo for you folks that are watching on YouTube. You can see here, I was curious to know the story. I did not know that. And it's definitely something to be said there, for the thought process that you put into it. The interior looks so good. The dash, the carpet, the foot pedals, the interior, the black and red, the bumper. I mean, just so much. Now, something that someone had said to me was, when I saw it at Mini Nats, one of our favorite shows, 2023, so about a year and a month ago, someone had said that, they go, man, there's a crazy story behind this truck. And I kind of knew that there was, and I wanted to always link up with you and tell the story for you to tell it.
Yeah.
Um, someone had mentioned too there was a lot of body work that went into it to really laser it in, because as you know, and anybody that's a fan of these trucks or any cars, automotive, if you paint something black and it's wavy at all, you can see it, right?
Oh yeah,
How
absolutely.
much effort went into the paint and body on it?
Well, and Ronnie might kill me for this, so Ronnie, I'm sorry,
Oh
but
boy.
when it was in paint prison, if I'm not mistaken, Ronnie had the truck for roughly around 5 years, I believe it was. I believe it was
Uh-huh.
5 years. And, again, Ronnie's very particular about his body work and about waiting the cure times on the cure times. So, he body worked it. He would wait for the cure time, and then he would put the primer on, wait on the cure time, and then, each stage has its own cure time. Um, so he really took his time on it, but you can see with the paint job, you can see why he had to take his time and why,
Yeah, and
because it turned out so slick and so straight that
yep.
you can tell that whoever done that paint job and the body work knows what they're doing.
And that's something that I think is so important, because I know many of us, the society we live in now, we want it now. And I think sometimes even my friend Brandon Burrell, we joked a couple years back. I told him I waited like 18 months to get a chrome bumper done on my Lincoln. And I think some
Right,
people go like, man, like I want it like yesterday. But I don't know what it is. As I've gotten older, I've gotten more patient with things. And although like even waiting to bag my car, like I did want it, but at the same time, I was like, you know what? I'm going to wait it out. I want to do it right. And that's the
right,
neat thing, because to me, like when you look at this truck and it's a black truck and it has all this legacy tied into it, right? And you're riding on the legacy of Jeremy. Uh, to me, it was worth the wait, dude. And I'm so glad that he took the time. And this thing is, there's no other way to describe it. It's dialed in, dude.
yeah, absolutely. It's very dialed in.
And these are some of the photos I know Mike Alexander had shared. I kind of put them together quick because, again, when you're doing this type of production, you got to kind of pull this stuff together a little quick, because, when you're doing these calls, you have to have something to kind of share, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
Now, are there any, like, with the back end here with some of the airbrushing and the Low Lux and what, are there any other things? Like, to me, the coolest thing is the shifter, and I did not know that about it. Are there any other things you wanted to mention about the truck in terms of maybe mods or anything that someone doesn't know?
So there's been so many people have their hands in on it. This picture here
Yep.
that you have up right now, I'd like to thank, one of my good friends, Shannon Smith, and he actually recently moved back to Texas, um, and he done these hard lines, and I was like, Shannon, he already knew that I had Low Lux and stuff, and I was like, the airline's got to be hard line, and it's got to be out of the copper, blah blah blah, and he's like, dude, I got you, and he done these hard lines, and he spent, I don't know, probably a good 3-4 days just hand bending all these lines and everything, making sure they're perfect. There's just so many people that had their hands in on the truck, that either I couldn't
Yeah.
do or I just needed help with.
Yeah. And
Um,
something that stuck out to me is like even this, right? Keep me honest. This is all airbrushing here.
yeah. So Tad Gallagher, everybody calls him Tadpole. He's also out of Ohio, and he's real good friends with Ronnie. He done all the airbrushing, and Jeremy, where he was in the lumber business and everything. He actually picked out a certain wood grain and gave it to Tad and said, "Hey, I want
Mimic it.
this in the interior. I want this in the bed, and all that is airbrush." A lot of people come up and they're like, "Man, that vinyl looks pretty cool," and I'm like, "No, it's not vinyl wrap. That's airbrush." And that pattern on that wood is called tiger wood, and
Wow.
that was Jeremy's one of his favorite pieces of wood, I guess you could say.
Amazing. Yeah, and this was cool because it was obviously in the airlift booth, and it was neat because it had that tie back to Mike Alexander. And again, in some of the social media posts, what I'll do is I'll go back and find that old The Writer Depot. I couldn't find it online, but I'll find that ad. I think every
Yeah.
once in a while, even Street Trucks will rerun that ad when Lowrider Depot advertises, which I think is super cool. But like the dash, like in this middle photo, with it all black like that with the red on top of it, this. A lot of times people say old school mini trucker. I'm an old school mini trucker. I'm from the '90s, and I remind people that Ernie wrote an article years ago. Rest in peace to Ernie. That mini trucks go back to the late '50s, believe it or not, with the Japanese trucks. And you kind of get into the 60s, and then really arguably the mid 70s to late 70s is when a lot of the old schooler guys really started going, hey, we're going to cut these trucks up. Truckin magazine started in 75. But I look back and say, the real roots and lineage, to use Ronnie's word from C10 Talk, goes back to these smaller mini trucks, the real mini trucks, dare I say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's neat. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, though, before in this photo, I keep forgetting to bring this up. Talk to us about the hood, though, because we can see in the bare metal photos the hood, if you will. Is it it is hinged right here, right?
Yes, it is hinged.
Yeah.
Yeah, it opens and closes normal. Absolutely. And it is hinged.
Yeah. Now, is it hinged right here, or does the whole thing open?
It opens regularly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
because
got
I
a hood
saw in
hinge
some of
on
the
each
metal
end and
photos it looked
everything.
like it was hinged here too.
Yeah, it's
in
not.
the front.
It's just like a regular hood. Yep.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I was curious about that. Now, obviously, something, Joe, that you and I mean, we know that you can never thank every single person. You've been very forthcoming with saying, look, I pieced together a lot of pieces of this puzzle, but I don't know every aspect. I don't know every single person. You named some of the bigger names. I'm sure there's a lot of friends and club mates and people that really stepped up, and some of those you've been able to mention. But as the podcast producer and even as the tour guide, if you will, of the story, I would caution everyone, please don't, if your name's not mentioned, I always try to reinforce to people, don't get upset, because when you're doing these episodes or you're doing an hour and a half conversation, it's easy to leave out pieces of the puzzle, especially when you got me jumping around a little bit. But if you think back, your wife, Leslie, your ride or die, right? And some of the other folks that are close, and Beaver's family and stuff. Is there any other kind of stories or anything else you want to mention related to, what we've been talking about?
I just want to thank several people. I want to thank the Ohio Severed guys. Everybody that was involved. Helping me out. JC Millette. He knew more direction than anybody else did with the truck. So I had a lot of conversations with him, and that this truck has brought me and JC a lot closer together. I mean, with the losing of Jeremy and everything, me and JC has just become so much closer. So now it's the two amigos. I want to thank my wife, because if it wasn't for her, I couldn't do a lot of this stuff. Tad Gallagher doing all the airbrushing, Ronnie Wells doing the paint and the body work, and Tyler Smith, sticking up to his word and getting the interior done on time, and Robbie and JC for coming and helping, and Scott Bedingfield for the wheels, and it just list goes on and on and on. If I forget anybody, I apologize. Shannon Smith for the airlines, and Scott McAllister for the wiring. It just, the list goes on and on and on, and you can't do these trucks without a lot of these big key members, like you said.
Yeah, I would have never guessed that Mike Alexander would have stepped up and hooked you up with some airlift. I wonder why he did that, right? It's because it's a beautiful truck. We know the answer to that. I'm just ribbing him a little bit, but I think when in 10 or 20 years, I mean, really the way I see it, like now, but in 10 or 20 years, there's going to be people that saw this truck at Mini Nats 2023 or Severed in the Midwest 2022. And these, younger kids or people that are the kids, of other enthusiasts, and they're going to say, hey, what's your favorite mini truck of all time? And if you think about some of our trucks that might have been from, rest in peace to your brother, 30th anniversary of him passing away at a very young age, there's going to be people that walked away from that show and say, Dad, that black and red truck, that thing was awesome. And I think, like, a lot of people today, I'll ask them, I'll say, Dion or Craig at Cal Concepts or K Daddy, did you guys know back in 96 when you were painting this truck that, like, this was, man, you were working on magic and this and that? And they're like, dude, we were just high on paint fumes, working, doing our thing.
Right.
But I think now, if you really think about the effort that went into helping, round out, Jeremy Beaver's vision and some of the other folks that own this truck, right? To me, it's amazing. I mean, a lot of magic happened, but a lot of hustle. And to me, the scene doesn't strive forward, to the next level unless there's these group efforts. My mother-in-law would always say it takes a village to raise a child, and a lot of times that's true, right? Because if family members go pick up the kid, I'm running a little bit late, or, hey, we want to go out on a date, the mother-in-law watches the kid or whatever, right? But I think, like, it took a village to finish this truck, and it to me, it just honestly, I mean, you could easily say this about anything, but I truly don't think it could have came out any better, dude. It really couldn't have.
I appreciate that. And one last person that I want to thank, and it's not the last, but should be the first, is I want to thank Jamie. I want to thank Jamie, for trusting me to get the truck, get it done in his memory and all that, and to let her and Jordan know that, I've always got their back. If they need anything, they know that they can count on me to be there. Especially JC and Severed Ohio guys, we'll be there for you. And I appreciate the opportunity to fulfill Jeremy's wishes.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to ask you, kind of in closing, and I'm going to try to pull back up the photo here. But if Jeremy were here, or you could say anything to him, what would you say, brother?
I miss you, man. I love you. And
well said, man.
There's just not enough things that we could rattle each other's brains with.
Well said. And if you think about Neil and Jeremy and Greg Miller and Ernie, those are four that come to mind. There's so many others that we did lose. And whether it's from something like what we talked about earlier or just other things, there's tragic things, there's accidents, there's old age, there's, a lot of people say, there's just extenuating circumstances that we can't control in our lives, whatever you believe. But rest assured, the scene is strong. There's a lot of good people out there. Your friendships and the club mates and the people that really pulled together to put this thing across the finish line. Your awesome wife, Leslie. I love seeing her at shows, throwing that diamond up.
That's right.
Our club has a lot of good people in it. And, this truck to me proves that you can look at the news sometimes, and if you're like me, you sometimes question, like, what the, everyone's trying to blame shit on Floridians, right? You look at these Floridians, right? And the Florida man. But when you think about, you watch the news and you're like, man, society's really going downhill. It's easy to get trapped in that vortex. But to me, you see a story like this, you hear a story like this, and you say, you know what? We're going to be all right, man.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, dude, I love you, brother. As a severed brother, I got a chance to meet you and talk with you and meet your family, some of your family. And, to me, I think it's a fitting way to end. I do want to give it to you to, obviously, if there's any last words that you have, brother.
Just, I appreciate everybody's help once again. Everybody keep mini trucking. And the next show I'll see you at is Camp and Drag. And I hope to see everybody there. And William's doing a big special. Typically on the concrete pad, William has something, whether it be tilt beds or juice or whatever each year. This year, he's going to have people that we have lost in the mini trucking scene. He's trying to get everybody that, we have lost. They're getting their trucks there on the concrete pad. So I think that that's really cool. I hope that Low Lux is front and center, you know. But I look forward to see everybody at Camp and Drag. You know, come up, introduce yourself anytime, whether it's a Camp and Drag or any other show. I'm a shy type person, so I don't typically stick my head out. But you know, just introduce yourself. Let's catch up on stuff, and everybody keep mini trucking.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll plug, if you go to camp and then the letter N drag, just how it sounds.com. I love that he has a link in here, by the way. You'll see Midwest Camp and Drag, and it's July 19th to the 21st. I went to it with my dad, rest in peace, Papa Smurf, back in 2012. It's been a long time, but we always try to partner with him because we know he's such a good dude. We know he means well. He's got an amazing event. And I hope that everybody gets an opportunity to go to this event at some point in their life if you haven't. Like you said, the fact that he's going to pay homage to so many of our loved ones and different enthusiasts in the scene, I think is amazing. So I think that's awesome. I want to give a huge shout out. I don't think I do enough. I don't shout out Severed in the Midwest enough. If you think about just a month later, give or take, in August, up in the Midwest area, you can find Severed in the Midwest online, Facebook and whatnot. So there's that. And I thank you for helping just tell the story. Again, a very storied mini truck, arguably one of the most storied ever if you really break down the nuts and bolts of it. And I'm just so thankful that you stuck with it. And I hope that the team at Mini Truckin Magazine is listening. You know, I don't want to give anything away because I don't have any intel on it, but I truly hope that this truck gets its glory, whether it just be a feature or whatnot. It truly deserves it, and I'm excited for the future for you, brother. Keep us updated on Joe's truck. Rest in peace to Joe. I know it's the 30th anniversary, unfortunately, of his untimely passing at a very young age, and much love and respect, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on here. Love
Mini's
you.
on the rise, and we keep them diamonds going, brother.
That's right.
We out ya.